New concerns on COVID-19. November 17, 2020, though, thank goodness. Immediately after the election, we get word of 2 vaccines by Moderna and Pfizer being more than 90% effective. We're good, right? Just a few more months. But read into the argument against herd immunity, such as that of AHS Chief Medical Officer Dr. Deena Hinshaw on October 28, 2020, and you find their arguments actually are against that of the vaccine being effective, that the virus is mutating. So what is it? Were the arguments against herd immunity a straw man argument? Or is our vaccine doomed to be obsolete by the time it comes out? Is it going to turn out that the argument against herd immunity by the mainstream is actually right in that the vaccine won't be effective long and that a rapid rush to herd immunity is all we've got? October 12, 2020. Dr. David Nabarro, the WHO Special Envoy on COVID-19, has urged world leaders to stop, quote, stop using lockdowns as your primary control method for the global health crisis, noting all it's accomplishing is poverty. This is not a surprise here, as we posted a YouTube video back in April noting models showing that the failure of the general lockdown was pretty much inevitable. Was this a super secret healthcare model? No, it was the AHS's own model. So let's look at the healthcare model in detail. First off, in the uncontrolled case, note that the crisis is over in August 2020. That's right, finished. And why does this curve go down? Why do all these curves go down? Because there is enough immunity to reduce the risk of transmission. This is sometimes referred to as herd immunity. You see, the more people immune post-virus, COVID can't jump from person to person. Well, you say, who says you end up immune? Well, how do you think they predicted the curve goes down? If you aren't dead from the virus, obviously your immune system has learned to combat the virus, granting you some immunity, long-term or not. This is the same as a vaccine, as the theoretical maximum effectiveness of the vaccine is you surviving the virus and living. A vaccine in some cases, most of the cases, is a weakened version of the virus. It tries to allow you to live through the virus with little to no symptoms, that all you get is the gain and no pain. Ironically, the immunocompromised generally have never been able to depend on vaccines, but on the herd immunity they provide. If short-term immunity is all you've got, herd immunity is all you've got. So what was the problem with the AHS model? Well, you multiply the number in the model and you get differing results on the level of immunity, which means differing R0 values, which is a cheat. Even the worst case scenario only ended with a herd immunity less than 40%, far below predicted values. The probable was less than 20%. This essentially predicted the second wave. I urge you to watch Dr. Sabine Hofstadter's video on herd immunity. She explains the science much better than myself. At a high level, what is important to realize is this R0 value. That is the basic reproduction number of the virus. From R0, one can calculate the fraction of people who must be immune for herd immunity from the basic reproduction number, R0. And the people who must be immune must be 1 minus 1 over R0. Why is that? It's because R0 tells you how many new people one infected person infects on average. Those who can get ill then are only those who are not immune. So if 1 minus 1 over R0 is the fraction of people who are immune, then the fraction of people who are not immune is 1 over R0. This means that the average number of susceptible people that one infected person reaches is R0 times 1 over R0, which is equal to 1. So if the fraction of immune people has reached 1 minus 1 over R0, then one infected person will, on average, only pass the disease to one other person, meaning at any level of immunity above 1 minus 1 over R0, outbreaks will die off. R0, by the way, for COVID has been estimated to be between 2 and 3. meaning the fraction of people who must have the disease for herd immunity would be around 50 to 70%. For comparison, R naught for Spanish influenza has been estimated to 1.4 to 2.8, so that's comparable to COVID. And an R naught of measles is roughly 12 to 18, far above, with a herd immunity threshold of about 92 to 95%. Here's an article where the herd immunity is calculated to be lower at 40%. They incorporate routines saying basically those who will get exposed faster will expedite herd immunity, while those with more conservative routines simply won't get it, and it expedites the process. Here's a study where they got the predicted 60 to 70%. And here's a study in Brazil where the herd immunity was proposed and achieved as having actually been achieved at 66%. This is the case for the focused protection of the Great Barrington Declaration, which recommends focused protection. You let those not at risk, the majority of the population, build up to herd immunity while protecting those at risk, namely the elderly and those with pre-existing conditions. With a vaccine, you don't even need to get sick to accomplish this level of immunity. But wait, here is Alberta's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Deena Hinshaw, arguing basically against herd immunity. She says long-lasting immunity is unclear, and that in Brazil, there were repeat infections. Long-lasting immunity is unclear, and she brings up Brazil, that study saying that there were repeat infections. So wait a minute. In 4 months, herd immunity is achieved, but in 4 more months, there's repeat infections due to virus mutations. So similar to the flu, it's mutated. But now we're to expect that a vaccine developed in 11 to 12 months is going to work on the virus. The question now must be asked, what strain is the vaccine effective for? If the virus mutated in 3 to 4 months, our vaccine will be obsolete. By dragging out the virus, we've allowed it to mutate even more by her logic. Her argument also ignores that herd immunity depends not on long-term immunity, but immunity at the time. And what do I mean by that? For visualization, the top shows a population with no herd immunity, the bottom is showing some herd immunity, with the green dots being those with immunity. They've had the virus before. Keep in mind that it doesn't matter if it's long-term or not. It's are they immune at the time? So the virus spreads. So in the lower case, note that there's enough immune at the time to stop the spread of the virus. Again, doesn't matter if they were immune tomorrow. It's are they immune at the time? Okay. And so here the virus is able to propagate freely. Here, enough people became immune that it broke the chain of transmission. Okay, and note that a vaccine can help build up this herd immunity as well. If it's not long-term, the only caveat is that it must rapidly be rushed out to be effective at the time. I hope Dr. Hinshaw appreciates her own argument and realizes that if you're to believe what she wrote, then she must rush the vaccine out or escalate the number of infections if the virus is mutating like the flu. So note that as of November 6, 2020, there were 16,872 cases, or 0.392% of the population. At that rate, it will take 89 years to herd immunity. Another argument she has is that increased deaths due to the inability to segregate between those high risk and low risk, because that just isn't possible. I take a real offense to that. The healthcare system absolutely should be able to operate in a manner that could segregate populations based on risk and take differing actions. She also says it will cost those not at risk. Again, only 10 healthy Albertans have died from COVID-19. The mortality rate for those with COVID-19 is in line with simply living life below the age of 60. It only elevates above that. And for those with pre-existing conditions, namely cardiovascular disease, diabetes, chronic respiratory disease, hypertension, and cancer. Now, why can the healthcare system not identify those at high risk and take measures to protect those people? Why are we wasting time talking about tracing apps when there's no database even attempting to identify those at high risk? Who really isn't taking COVID seriously? Finally, she claims that those over the age of 60 can contribute to society. Well, not if they're in perpetual repeat lockdown, in which case, what's your point? Alternatively, are you saying it's worth killing these people that they can contribute? Also, that ignores the fact that most people over 60 are retired. I don't get this argument at all. Finally, I think it's tragic, as Daniel Smith points out in her November 13th, 2020 article, that a $20 billion healthcare system consisting of over 100,000 people is considered overwhelmed with 217 people without a lockdown. So my concerns right now is, one, is the virus mutating, or was that just a straw man argument against herd immunity to perpetuate the crisis? Vaccine or not, we're going to have to achieve herd immunity fast, if so. Finally, why isn't the healthcare system sophisticated enough to identify who is at risk and take action to protect them versus generic actions? So that's this video. Please feel free to send questions to me at coolmadcoffeedad@gmail.com. I hope to present future videos on the challenges of the economy, climate change, and ensuring our political system isn't reduced to a pyramid scam in the near future. Thanks for watching.